The entire executive floor changed the second Matteo De Luca stepped out of the elevator. Conversations stopped. Jackets were straightened. Coffee cups disappeared from desks. One assistant quietly opened a document she had not touched in 20 minutes and began typing as if the company's survival depended on it. Another rushed toward Matteo's office carrying a vase of white lilies. Only one person did not look up. Nora Hayes sat at the far end of the executive desk row, reviewing tomorrow's logistics schedule with a pencil tucked behind one ear. She was 27, painfully shy in crowded rooms, and had worked as Matteo's scheduling secretary for 8 months. She knew exactly who had entered. She simply had work to finish. Matteo noticed her immediately. Not because she demanded attention. Because everyone else did. He walked toward his office. The assistant placed the lilies on his desk. "I heard these were your favorite, Mr. De Luca." Matteo barely glanced at them. Before he could answer, Nora entered carrying a folder. She stopped, looked at the flowers, then moved them to a side cabinet. The assistant stared at her. Matteo did too. "Why did you move those?" Nora pointed toward the wall behind the vase. "They blocked the security monitor." "They were for me. I assumed seeing the building was more useful." Silence. The assistant looked horrified. Nora seemed to realize everyone was staring at her. Her cheeks turned pink. She lowered her eyes and placed the folder on Matteo's desk. "Your 10:30 meeting was moved to 11. The Milan call overlaps with the warehouse review, so I shortened the review by 15 minutes. Then she turned to leave. Matteo stopped her. "Miss Hayes." Nora looked back. "Yes. You don't like lilies?" "They are fine." "Then why do you look annoyed?" "I'm not annoyed." "You moved them." "They blocked the monitor." Matteo stared at her. Nora stared back for exactly 2 uncomfortable seconds before looking down again. Then she left. Natural AD break, 1.5 to 2 sec pause. By lunchtime, Matteo had noticed something else. Everyone around him behaved differently when he was present. Managers laughed harder. Assistants volunteered for work nobody wanted. Executives suddenly remembered projects they hoped he would admire. Nora did none of it. When he complimented the revised schedule, she simply said, "Thank you." No smile designed to linger. No attempt to extend the conversation. When he asked if she wanted lunch from the Italian restaurant downstairs, she opened a container of homemade soup. "I brought food." "They deliver." "So does my kitchen." "Yesterday." Matteo almost smiled. "You're refusing lunch with your boss?" "I'm refusing to waste soup." Then she sat alone near the window. Matteo watched her from his office. She spoke easily with the cleaning woman who passed by. She remembered the receptionist's daughter had a school recital. She helped a junior assistant correct a booking error without making him feel stupid. But whenever Matteo approached, Nora became quieter. That bothered him. At 3, he called her into his office. Nora entered with a notebook. "Did I make a mistake?" "No." She looked surprised. Matteo leaned back. "Do I make you nervous?" Nora froze. The truthful answer was yes. Not because she thought he would hurt her. Because Matteo De Luca was the kind of man who changed the atmosphere of an entire floor by entering it. He had money, power, and a reputation people discussed in lowered voices. Nora hated being watched. And Matteo watched everything. "A little," she admitted. Most people would have denied it. Matteo found himself strangely pleased by the honesty. "Yet you moved my flowers." "They still blocked the monitor." "So fear has limits." Nora finally smiled. "Apparently around workplace safety." Matteo laughed once. It surprised both of them. Nora immediately looked back at her notebook. "Was there something you needed?" That question irritated him for reasons he could not explain. Every other person in the building would have used the moment to charm him. Nora wanted to return to work. "No." She nodded. "Then I have payroll appointments to schedule." And she left. Later that evening, the executive floor emptied. Matteo remained in his office. Through the glass wall, he saw Nora putting on her coat. It was 6 exactly. No unpaid overtime designed to impress him. No lingering near his office. She simply packed her bag. Matteo stepped outside. "You're leaving?" Nora looked at the clock. "My shift ended. Most assistants stay when I stay. Do they have unfinished work?" He thought about it. Probably not. Nora adjusted her bag. "Good night, Mr. DeLuca." She walked toward the elevator. Matteo watched the doors close behind her. 4 years, people had competed for his attention. Some wanted promotions. Others wanted money, status, protection, or proximity to his name. Nora Hayes seemed to want none of it. She did her job well. Told him when he was wrong. Moved his flowers. Then went home. Matteo should have found that convenient. Instead, for the first time in years, he found himself wondering something completely ridiculous. Why didn't she care whether he was impressed? And worse, why did he suddenly care so much about impressing her? The next morning, Matteo DeLuca arrived at the office carrying 2 coffees. He gave one to Nora. She looked at the cup. Then at him. "What is this?" "Coffee. I can see that. You drink coffee. So do most adults." Matteo frowned. Nora immediately looked nervous. "Sorry." "No. Continue." She glanced at the label. "This has hazelnut syrup." "Yes. I don't like hazelnut." Matteo stared at the cup like it had betrayed him personally. "You told the receptionist you liked it." "I said her hazelnut candles smelled nice." "That is not the same thing." "No." Nora took her usual black coffee from her desk. Matteo looked at it. "When did you buy that?" "On the way here." He picked up both cups he had brought. "Excellent." Nora tried not to smile. "You could give them to someone else." "I'm considering firing hazelnuts." She laughed before she could stop herself. Matteo noticed. So did she. Her cheeks turned pink again. Then she returned to her computer. That tiny laugh stayed in Matteo's head through 2 meetings. Natural AD break, 1.5 to 2 sec pause. By noon, he had developed a theory. Nora did not dislike him. She simply required a better strategy. Unfortunately, Matteo had never needed a strategy to impress anyone. People usually decided he was impressive before he spoke. So he started with lunch. A restaurant sent handmade pasta, grilled fish, desserts and enough food for half the floor. Matteo walked past Nora's desk. "Join us." She opened her lunch bag. "Thank you, but I brought soup." Again. Matteo looked offended. "Is this the same soup?" "No. This is lentil." "You have an alarming commitment to containers." "They save money." "I'm paying." "That makes it save your money." Matteo stared at her. Nora quietly added, "Also, I like my soup." He walked away. 10 minutes later, one of his executives found Matteo standing beside the catering table glaring at a plate of expensive pasta. "Something wrong?" "No." Matteo looked toward Nora eating peacefully by the window. Apparently soup is undefeated. Later that afternoon, he tried something more practical. Nora was leaving at 6 when a black sedan pulled up outside the building. She stopped. The driver opened the rear door. "Mr. DeLuca arranged your ride home." Nora turned around. Matteo was standing inside the lobby. She walked back. "Why?" "It's raining." "I have an umbrella." "It's a very small umbrella. It has survived weather before." "The car is safer." Nora hesitated. Then she lowered her voice. "I read on the train." "You can read in the car." "I also like being alone after work." That answer stopped him. Not rejection. Not insult. Just truth. Matteo nodded. "Fine." Nora looked relieved. "Thank you." She left under the tiny umbrella. Matteo watched her cross the street. One of his guards glanced at the rain. "She could have used the car." "I noticed." The guard wisely said nothing else. The next day was Nora's birthday. Matteo knew because her personnel file had reminded him. He moved his international shipping call 30 minutes earlier and left the afternoon clear. When Nora arrived, there was a small cake on her desk. No flowers. He had learned that lesson. She looked at the cake. Then at him. You did this? Yes. Thank you. Matteo waited. Nora opened her calendar. He continued waiting. Finally, she looked up. Was there something else? I cleared your afternoon. Her expression changed. You what? So you can leave early. Mr. DeLuca, you moved the Geneva call? Yes. For my birthday? Yes. Nora stared at him. Please don't reorganize international shipping because I turned 28. Matteo almost laughed. You're complaining about leaving early? I'm saying Geneva should not know I exist. He smiled. They don't. Good. She paused. The cake was enough. That sentence hit him differently. Enough. Not bigger. Not more expensive. Not more impressive. Enough. At lunch, Nora shared the cake with the reception staff, cleaners, and 2 junior assistants. Matteo noticed she saved the smallest piece for herself. He also noticed she offered him none. He walked over. Am I excluded? Nora looked horrified. I thought you didn't eat sweets. Who told you that? You decline dessert at every business dinner. That is because people watch me eat. Nora blinked. Then she cut him a piece. Try being less dramatic. I'm beginning to regret employing you. No, you're not. The words escaped before she could soften them. Matteo looked at her. Nora froze. Then he smiled. No, I'm not. For 1 second, the air between them changed. Not boss and secretary. Not feared man and shy employee. Just 2 people who suddenly knew the other was enjoying this. That evening, Matteo found Nora alone near the copy room. He asked the question that had been bothering him for days. Do you dislike me? Nora stared at him. No. Are you sure? Yes. You refuse my food. I bring lunch. My driver. I like the train. You leave when I stay. My work is finished. Matteo folded his arms. Nora finally understood. You think I'm doing this deliberately? He said nothing. Her eyebrows lifted. Mr. DeLuca, I'm not trying to make you work harder for my attention. That answer should have relieved him. Instead, it made him strangely disappointed. So you're not trying to impress me either? No. Why? Nora looked genuinely confused. Because you hired me to do my job. She gathered the copies. If I do it well, that should be enough. Then she walked away. Matteo stood alone in the hallway. Every woman who had ever wanted his attention knew exactly what his name could offer. Nora Hayes wanted none of it. And for the first time, Matteo realized the problem was no longer that she wasn't trying to impress him. It was that he had started trying very hard to impress her. By Monday morning, Nora knew something had changed. People stopped talking when she entered the break room. 2 assistants smiled at her for no reason. A junior manager asked whether she preferred Italian restaurants now. Nora stared at him. What? Nothing. He disappeared with his coffee. She tried to ignore it. By lunchtime, ignoring it became impossible. Nora entered the copy room and heard 2 executives speaking outside. Of course she keeps refusing him. It's smart. She got DeLuca sending cars, buying cake, bringing coffee. Every other woman chases him. She figured out the trick is making him chase her. The second man laughed. Quiet little thing knows exactly what she's doing. Nora stopped breathing for a moment. Her face burned. She had spent years avoiding attention. Now people were turning every boundary she had set into a strategy for getting a powerful man. She left without collecting her copies. Matteo noticed 20 minutes later. Nora had rearranged 2 meetings incorrectly. She never did that. He found her at her desk staring at the same email. What happened? Nothing. You've read that message 4 times. I'm working. He lowered his voice. Nora. She looked up. Please don't. The words were soft, but firm. Matteo stepped back. Fine. That afternoon, However, he heard the gossip himself. Two managers near the conference room were joking about how long Nora would keep playing hard to get before convincing Matteo to promote her. Neither noticed him until the hallway went silent. Matteo did not shout. That made it worse. Repeat it. Neither man did. Matteo ordered them back to work. Then he went directly to Nora. She was filing schedules when he closed the office door. I heard what they are saying. Nora's shoulders tightened. I know. Why didn't you tell me? What exactly would you have done? Matteo paused. She already knew the answer. He would have summoned the men, frightened them and made the entire floor understand that Nora was protected by Matteo De Luca, which would only create more gossip. He sat across from her. Are you doing it deliberately? Nora stared at him. The question landed badly. What? The refusing. The distance. Are you trying to make you interested? Matteo said nothing. Nora stood. She was embarrassed enough that her hands shook. But this time, shyness did not make her quiet. I am not playing hard to get. Matteo's expression changed. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. She took a breath. I bring my own lunch because I like it. I take the train because I like reading. I leave at 6 because my life does not begin and end in this office. Matteo remained silent. I'm not refusing things so you'll offer something bigger. Her voice dropped. I'm not trying to make you interested in me. I'm trying to finish my job and go home. That hurt more than Matteo expected. But underneath the sting was embarrassment. Because he had done exactly what everyone else had done. He had taken Nora's ordinary choices and made them about him. I'm sorry. Nora blinked. She had prepared herself for argument. Not that. Matteo stood. The coffee. The car. Moving your schedule. I thought I was being generous. You were trying to impress me. Yes. The honesty surprised her. And you assumed if I wasn't impressed, I must be performing. Matteo nodded slowly. That was arrogant. A little. A lot. Nora almost smiled. But Matteo did not use the smile as permission to continue. He opened the door. I'll stop. She looked at him. Stop what? Trying to make you notice me. Then he left. And he meant it. The following week was strangely normal. No coffee appeared on Nora's desk. No expensive lunches. No driver waited downstairs. Matteo spoke to her about schedules, meetings, and company decisions. Nothing else. When 6 o'clock came, he said goodnight without asking why she was leaving. Nora should have felt relieved. She did. Mostly. But something unexpected happened. Without Matteo trying to impress her, she began noticing him. She noticed he thanked the cleaning staff by name. She noticed he stopped meetings when junior employees were being talked over. She noticed he drank terrible office coffee when nobody brought him anything better. And she noticed that whenever Nora entered his office, Matteo no longer watched her as though he was waiting for a reaction. He simply listened. One evening, she brought him an updated schedule. Matteo signed it. Anything else? Nora hesitated. No. She started toward the door. Then stopped. You haven't brought hazelnut coffee lately. Matteo looked up. I was instructed to stop trying. I didn't instruct you. You strongly suggested. Nora smiled. You could still bring coffee. His eyebrow lifted. Black. Black. No syrup. Please don't traumatize it. Matteo laughed. Nora left before he could see how red her cheeks had become. The next morning, one black coffee sat on her desk. No note. No performance. No expectation. Nora picked it up and looked through the glass toward Matteo's office. He was already working. He did not even look up to see whether she liked it. And somehow, that was the first thing he had done that genuinely impressed her. Matteo stopped trying to impress Nora. And somehow, that was when she started noticing everything. He no longer appeared beside her desk with expensive coffee. He did not rearrange meetings for her convenience. He did not offer rides home when it rained. He simply treated her exactly as she had asked to be treated. Professionally. Respectfully. Normally. Nora should have been relieved. Instead, she found herself watching him. She noticed Matteo stayed late one evening helping a junior manager rebuild a presentation after the man admitted he had made a mistake. No shouting. No threat. Just, fix it before morning. She noticed he began saying good morning to the receptionist instead of walking past while reading his phone. She noticed he quietly replaced the broken chair used by the elderly night security guard. Nobody knew he had done it. Nora only knew because she had processed the purchase. That mattered. There was no audience. No one to impress. One afternoon, Matteo called her into a strategy meeting. Nora entered with her notebook and automatically chose the chair near the wall. Matteo pointed toward an empty seat at the table. Sit there. Her body stiffened. He immediately corrected himself. Would you sit there? Nora looked at him. Small change. Big difference. She Saturday. Natural AD break, 1.5 to 2 sec pause. The meeting concerned a new regional office. Executives argued for almost an hour about staffing. Nora remained quiet until Matteo noticed her writing something in the margin. What? Every face turned toward her. Nora hated that. Matteo saw it immediately. You don't have to answer. That made answering easier. The proposed schedule assumes every department works independently. One executive frowned. They do. No. Payroll, logistics, and customer support share the same bottleneck between 4 and 6. She explained that opening another office without changing that overlap would simply duplicate the problem. Silence. Matteo asked one question. What would you change? Nora spoke for 6 minutes. When she finished, the operations director stared at her. Why are you a secretary? Nora's face turned pink. Matteo leaned back. I've been wondering the same thing. After the meeting, Nora followed him into his office. You shouldn't have said that. What? That you've been wondering why I'm a secretary. It's true. It sounds like you're preparing to promote me. I am. Nora froze. Matteo opened a folder. A new operations coordinator position had been approved. Higher salary. Real decision-making authority. Exactly the type of work Nora had quietly been doing around the edges of her job for years. For 1 second, excitement crossed her face. Then disappeared. No. Matteo stared at her. You haven't even read it. I can't take it. Why? Nora lowered her voice. Because everyone already thinks you're interested in me. He went still. If I move into management now, they'll decide that's why. You earned this. That doesn't mean they'll believe it. Matteo hated the fact that she was right. Nora continued. I spent years being invisible because I wanted my work to speak first. I'm not finally becoming visible as the woman the boss likes. That isn't what you are. I know. She looked at him. But I need my career to know it too. Matteo closed the folder. His first instinct was to tell her he did not care what people thought. That would have been easy. And selfish. Because Nora did care. Not about gossip itself. About knowing that when she entered a room, she had earned the chair. So Matteo asked, what would make the promotion fair? Nora had not expected that. She thought for a moment. You remove yourself from the decision. His expression changed. You want someone else deciding whether you work directly under my executive team? Yes. What if they choose someone else? Nora swallowed. Then they choose someone else. That answer was difficult for both of them. Matteo nodded. Fine. The next morning, the position was posted internally and externally. A 3-person operations committee would conduct interviews. Matteo would receive no vote. Nora applied. So did 17 other candidates. For the next 2 weeks, Matteo never asked how her interviews went. Nora never asked whether he knew the results. They worked exactly as before. But something between them had shifted. One evening, Nora found Matteo eating alone in the conference room. No catered dinner. Just a sandwich from the same vending area he once mocked. She stopped. That looks terrible. It is. Why are you eating it? I was busy. Nora opened her lunch bag. One container remained. Tomato soup. She placed half beside him. Matteo looked at it. I thought soup was protected territory. Temporary diplomatic agreement. He smiled. They ate together without discussing work. Matteo told her about the first terrible apartment he had rented at 20. Nora told him she still called her mother whenever she ruined rice. Neither was trying to impress the other. That was why the conversation mattered. When Nora stood to leave, Matteo said her name. She turned. I still want to take you to dinner someday. Her heart beat faster. But not while I have any influence over where your career goes. Nora looked at him for a long moment. Then smiled softly. That may be the first impressive thing you've done on purpose. The following morning, the operations committee sent its decision. Nora opened the email. She had been selected. But attached beneath the offer was one final condition. The role would place her permanently inside Matteo's executive meetings. Not behind him. Not outside the room. Beside him. And now Nora had to decide whether she was ready to stop hiding from the attention she had spent her entire career avoiding. Nora read the promotion email 3 times. Then she closed it. Then opened it again. The operations committee had selected her unanimously. Matteo had not voted. He had not attended the interviews. He had not even asked the committee how she performed. For the first time in her career, Nora had been offered a seat near power without power pulling the chair out for her. She accepted. Her first executive meeting began the following Monday. Nora stood outside the conference room holding a folder against her chest. Matteo passed her, then stopped. Nervous? Extremely. You earned the seat. She looked at him. I know. He smiled. That was exactly the answer he wanted. Inside, Nora did not sit near the wall. Her nameplate waited at the table. For the first 20 minutes, she barely spoke. Then an executive proposed reducing support staff to improve margins. Nora quietly asked whether anyone had calculated the overtime that would replace those positions. Nobody had. She had. 5 minutes later, the proposal was postponed. Nora said nothing else during the meeting. She did not need to. The quietest woman in the room had spoken once, and everyone remembered it. Natural AD break, 1.5 to 2 sec pause. Weeks passed. The gossip slowly died. Not because Matteo frightened anyone into silence. Because Nora became impossible to dismiss. Her recommendations improved scheduling. Her staffing changes reduced late shipments. Managers began requesting her opinion before meetings. She was no longer known as the secretary Matteo liked. She was Nora Hayes, operations coordinator. One afternoon, the same executive who had once joked that she was playing hard to get stopped beside her desk. I owe you an apology. Nora looked up. He admitted that he had assumed her promotion would come through Matteo. Instead, he had watched her earn it. Nora accepted the apology without making him comfortable. That evening, Matteo found her packing her bag. 6 o'clock. Still exists. I was hoping promotion might destroy your relationship with clocks. It made it stronger. He laughed. Then he became serious. I have a question. Nora waited. Dinner Friday? Her heart moved before her expression did. She glanced toward his office. You have no control over my position now. No. You can't change my salary. No. You can't remove me because I say no. The committee would probably remove me first. Nora smiled. Then ask again. Matteo straightened. Nora Hayes, would you like to have dinner with me Friday? She let him wait for several seconds. The man who had once been surrounded by people desperate to impress him stood completely still. Yes. His smile appeared slowly. 7:30. 7:30. No expensive restaurant. That eliminates most of my personality. You'll survive. Their first date happened at a small restaurant 3 blocks from Nora's apartment. No private room. No flowers covering the table. No driver waiting at the door. Matteo arrived early. Nora noticed. So now you're trying to impress me again? A little. She removed her coat. Dangerous. I've improved my strategy. How? I'm asking what you like first. Nora smiled. That's annoyingly effective. Months later, the executive floor no longer changed when Matteo stepped out of the elevator. People still respected him. Some still feared his name outside the company. But inside, employees continued conversations instead of pretending to work harder because he had appeared. Nora was usually the least impressed of all. One evening, Matteo entered her office after another long meeting. She did not look up. Need something? He leaned against the door. Do you know what first made me notice you? The flowers. You moved them. They blocked the monitor. They were expensive. They were still in the way. Matteo laughed. Then he asked, Are you ever going to try to impress me? Nora finally looked up. No. He nodded. Good. She closed her laptop. But I might let you keep trying to impress me. Matteo smiled like he had just won something far more difficult than a contract. Nora stood and took her coat. He offered his hand. She accepted it. The Mafia Boss had spent his life surrounded by people who changed themselves when he entered a room. Nora never did. She never laughed louder, stayed later, dressed differently, or pretended his attention was an achievement. And that was exactly why Matteo fell for her. Because the only shy secretary who never tried to impress him became the one person whose respect he wanted badly enough to earn.